Assalamu alaikum, good evening from PT World. I am Syed Shabahat and welcome to the special transmission. We are again discussing today the 48th Council of Foreign Ministers that has been inaugurated by Prime Minister Imran Khan today. Prime Minister in his speech, once again a historic and remarkable speech, has underlined several areas of coordination where all the countries of OIC have been invited to come together and to play a more effective and a robust role. To begin with, he spoke about the issue of Islamophobia. He congratulated the members of OIC for the recent resolution passed by United Nations General Assembly. He later spoke about the role that OIC should play to underline the issue of Kashmir and Palestine. And more importantly, he said that we, the Muslims, over 1 billion people on earth, have to be noticed by bringing our actions together. We need to coordinate more. And since the focus of his speech was on the coordination, I thought it will be quite worthwhile to start our program today with the issue of coordination in OIC countries. I have therefore invited Dr. Professor Muhammad Iqbal Chaudhry Saab in my program today. Dr. Saab has quite a heavy profile. He is Hilal Imtiaz, Sitara Imtiaz, Tamga Imtiaz, with 1,200 publications, cited over 33,000 times, and 57 international patents in his name. 86 students have been awarded PhD degree in various areas by citing his work or doing this, making use of his research. So, Dr. Saab, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Shabahat.
Such a pleasure to have a remarkable personality like you to speak with us. Kindly tell us about ComStack, what exactly it is and what does it do?
See, ComStack is a standing committee, a permanent standing committee of 57 ministers of science and technology covering the entire spectrum of the Muslim world. And primarily the objective of ComStack is to bring together the Muslim world for science-based development, because development today, Shabahat, is actually based on science and technology in higher education. Without that, no country, no region, no political bloc can develop. So primarily Pakistan is the host country, and this is the only OIC institution which is in Pakistan, chaired by the President of Pakistan and co-chaired by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And this is considered to be one of the premier institutions in the OIC system.
Dr. Saab, while I was going through the material that was available on website of your institute, there was a word that caught a lot of my attention: science diplomacy. So how do you use science to do diplomacy within these countries?
See, science is one component of human knowledge which is non-dogmatic and apolitical. It has no ideological boundaries or no differences in political system. So science can bring people together, the countries together, because we all face common problems such as lack of development. We are in the cycle of low development. We have climate change issues. We have a problem of perception. We have a huge youth bulge, and in order to develop in the field of science and technology, we need to work together. And therefore, science is one thing which can serve as a new diplomatic tool other than conventional tool to bring people together and generate goodwill for each other. And we have seen this during COVID-19 also, that countries have used health technology, science technology to create excellent goodwill and develop relationship with the developing world.
But Dr. Saab, generally speaking, I mean, the perception of a common man says that institutions like OIC do not remain very functional because it's not very visible even if they are functional. And normally the member countries are not coordinating much with each other. But when I went through the website of ComStack, there was an entire chapter on the areas of cooperation with regards to COVID as well. So is it a very lively and a coordinating body that's doing a lot of work, or does its work also goes up and down with the conferences taking place sometime?
ComStack was actually created to be an organization which remain vibrant because it's based on institutions and individuals. So it doesn't have any political dimension. It has the dimension where extremely motivated people would like to do something useful for the humanity. So during COVID-19, the ComStech was phenomenally active. We have conducted lots of technological foresight exercises. We looked into the disease pattern. We looked into the technologies which were developed in the Muslim world, how vaccines were developed, how these vaccines have distributed among the Muslim countries, and what kind of a capacity which OIC world required for the preparedness for the next phase. So ComStech remained very, very active because it is linked with the entire spectrum of institutions from Suriname in South America to Indonesia all the way to the east. And these institutions and networks are part of ComStech, and ComStech remain in last 2 years a very, very active organization which has a huge fellowship program. Health Africa program of ComStech is considered to be a, one of the gold standards in OIC system. Palestinian fellowships, as soon as these atrocities were committed recently in Gaza, we realized that education and especially higher education system in Palestine was destroyed, and ComStech came up very quickly for 500 fellowships for the researchers. So they continue to work on their research projects and continue to develop their skills which are actually required for Palestinian scholars. So we have a whole range of programs which are bilateral, multilateral, regional, specific. For instance, in area of healthcare, we have a huge program for eye diseases, ophthalmology program of ComStech in Niger, Gambia, Chad, Benin. Is a whole range of different activities. In neurocritical care, we are starting a new program where neurology is going to train the local doctors in stroke management and others. And each one of them is primarily a capacity building initiative for the local doctors. So that reflects that ComStech is actually working on in areas where we can see the difference on ground, because we're not a science academy. We don't want to work on kind of a basic science, which is of course important, but we would like to have the applied aspect of science which can have some impact on the life of people. So this is exactly what ComStech is trying to do.
And while you just mentioned Palestine, because I was reading that Palestine is one of the worst affected areas because of war. Their schools and in educational institutes have been destroyed. But you just mentioned that there are some African nations that you are also helping out. Tell me, how active of a role does Pakistan play as a country in the accomplishment of the objectives that you just underlined?
See, Pakistan's contribution are unfortunately not properly presented, to be honest, and this is the first time that ComStech start telling the OIC world that this is what Pakistan is contributing. Pakistan has excellent institutions. We have some of the finest doctors, health professionals, scientists, scholars in different fields. We have excellent technologies which have been indigenously developed. And ComStech role is to showcase Pakistan excellence in the areas, in the countries where they are needed the most. So many of the programs of ComStech actually centered around Pakistani institutions and Pakistani professionals. And I mentioned about Health Africa program, which has been now widely appreciated in the OIC world, is actually centered around very high quality health professionals in public health, in medical technology, in healthcare, capacity building of professionals and technicians. Pakistan is at the forefront because here Pakistan contributes in a major way, and that people who are benefiting from Pakistan's excellence then develop this excellent feeling about this country, which offer them so much. And other than love and affection, the excellence in science and technology of Pakistan is now widely recognized.
Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, you have met so many participants in this meeting that is taking place now, and you must have discussed all of this with them as well. So what are the low-hanging fruits or the areas that you expect taking advantage of the interactions that you just had, where your organization is going to do more based on the commitments that you might have received from them?
See, I have lots of meetings. The President of Islamic Development Bank has visited for the first time ComStech headquarters, and he was totally impressed on the kind of work which we are trying to conduct. And what we have agreed upon is to link Pakistani institutions, strong Pakistani institution with a weak institution in the OIC world. And this is called reverse linkage program, which primarily means that the weak institution in OIC world will be able to benefit from Pakistani excellence in the field of agri-technology, biotechnology, nanotechnology. This is a low-hanging fruit because the excellence is already there. Health sector is very important because health intervention have an immediate impact. I mean, you can see people start seeing again. The blindness is prevented. You can see people treated from very critical diseases. So health is an extremely important area. And I had meeting with the Senegali delegation. I met with the Palestinian foreign minister. I had meeting with the foreign minister of Yemen. We had meeting with Kazakhstan and many other countries, and all want to work with Comstack. So there is now, alhamdulillah, a greater recognition of the contribution of Pakistan and Comstack. Comstack is primarily Pakistan because Pakistan hosts Comstack, and therefore Comstack's primary role is not only to help Ummah but also project Pakistan's soft image, and this is what called soft diplomacy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Iqbal Chaudhry, for being my guest. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a very insightful conversation that we just had, reminding us the fact that Pakistan's contributions are immense, particularly with regards to the other Muslim countries that are on the receiving end. They're receiving our help and support in the realms of education, health, biotechnology, agriculture technology, and the list goes on. We'll take a break and we'll join you back with the next segment of the program. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. There were two extremely important things that happened in this OIC's meeting again. First and foremost is the presence of Chinese Foreign Minister. Mr. Wang Yi participated for the first time in this summit that is taking place, and the session also was not only witnessed by him, but he also spoke with the audience. And he said that there are bridges that China wants to build in terms of coordination with the Islamic countries. One very important thing. And taking advantage of his presence or the presence of all the participants, he also voiced his concerns towards the sanctions that West has placed on Russia, and also some concerns with regards to Ukraine. Prime Minister of Pakistan, on term of his speech, also spoke about the issue of Palestine and Kashmir, and categorically mentioned that Muslim countries have remained primarily unheard in the entire diplomatic discourse that has been taking place around this subject, despite the fact that Muslim countries are more than 50 in numbers. Their representation on the international diplomatic forums has remained unimpressive. To join me in this part of program, I have the pleasure of having Mr. Syed Zia. He is a research fellow at Army Institute of Military History. And Syed, I welcome you to my program.
Thank you so much.
So first things first, first time Chinese foreign minister was there, and not only he spoke with the representatives of all these countries, but he also spoke business, categorically mentioning that he is here to build bridges with all of these countries, and China's economic policies actually require China to bring bridges with all of these countries. How do you see his speech?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think there are two parts to this. First of all, we'll have to look at what exactly does China want with these meetings in Pakistan. China is a massive country with an ambition to create bridges between China and the countries in the region. With its CPEC and BRI in mind, we have to appreciate that China is looking to build all these connections. And with 57 countries present in Pakistan, the ease of communicating with them to convey the Chinese message and to have them all at the same platform is something that is a huge dividend of this OIC meeting. On the other hand, we have to look how China can be of some help to the OIC as well. The countries in the region, especially the Muslim countries, these 57 countries together, they're trying to sort of bring about a re-rise of OIC. We have seen the Prime Minister's vision and how he's been addressing the OIC as well. Obviously with China's sway and China's might, its military and its political and its diplomatic might, these countries, especially I appreciate Pakistan's stance and Pakistan's effort to bring China into this as well, to tell the world that Pakistan is not isolated and these countries are not just in one block or one sort of league. They're talking to everybody who's willing to listen.
Syed, that brings us to a very important point. Our next door neighbor has been doing its best for last over 10 years, I would say. I'll start the clock from the attack on Sri Lankan team that took place in 2009 and onwards. There was too much effort made by India to diplomatically isolate Pakistan. Time and again, Pakistan was reminded on various international forums that Pakistan stands diplomatically isolated. That was the point of view of Indian polity or Indian diplomacy. In last few months, this is the second time we have representation from over 46 countries. Coming together, sitting in our parliament, listening to our prime minister, listening to our foreign minister. What would be happening? Is it not a nightmare for India that has just seen Pakistan at the center stage with regards to Afghanistan as well in the recent past?
So the way we look at it is that India has been trying to play a game so as to isolate Pakistan and to undermine Pakistan's role at the international forums. Pakistan is a very vibrant, it's a very sort of, it plays its part well in the international community. It has one of the largest, contingent in the UN peacekeeping forces. Pakistan is working on every level to work with different countries in Africa. It's talking to the countries in the Middle East. So India's played its part, but obviously Pakistan has its own role and its own position at the international forum, in the international arena. We see how Pakistan has been effective, how Pakistan has proved India wrong. It's not isolated. We have become a part of SCO. We've been, leading the OIC meetings, and we are everywhere. Just today and yesterday, the UN Undersecretary was here as well. And with China and the US, two global powers present in Pakistan at the same time, this shows Pakistan's sway and ability to balance power in the region.
Let's go back to what Chinese foreign minister also said, and I'll repeat. He said the spillover effect of unilateral sanctions on Russia is a point of concern for China. So while I was going through some research for this program, Sarmad, I found out that 30% of the wheat in the world is produced in Russia and Ukraine together. Now, Ukraine being, in this state of war, and Russia under severe economic sanctions off from international economic grid or international banking circuit, don't you think it is going to trigger another wave of inflation in the world, which might affect many of the Muslim countries, particularly those from sub-Saharan Africa?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we see with the Prime Minister just today, he called it the breadbasket of the world, Ukraine and Russia. With these exports not coming out from this region, naturally the price of a lot of daily use items and this staple food is going to rise. And a lot of countries which cannot afford to grow or which do not have the right climate to grow all these crops in their countries, naturally they're going to be affected. Obviously, there are other ways to sort of counter that as well, but efforts must be made at all levels to ensure that these countries are not affected to the extent which it would otherwise if these countries are left on their own. The war is an ongoing thing, it's a reality, and we have to face that. This is something we can't just get away from. So the world has to come together, and as we've come together for COVID, this is something that we need to do once again.
Going forward, Prime Minister had a special focus on the issue of Palestine. And he said this categorically that Palestine's issue is an issue which reminds the countries of OIC that they have not been heard on various diplomatic forums in the world. And Palestine also sits at the heart of creation of OIC because it was one of the reasons why OIC came into existence. Do you think with the OIC now convening more frequently, is it not the right time once again to bring the attention of international community toward the issue of Palestine?
The international community, I think this is one of the major goals. As the Prime Minister today, he has said this as well. This is one of the major goals, to bring together the international community of Muslims, to bring together the Ummah. And we saw how the Prime Minister addressed the people as well, all the foreign ministers. He was speaking like a leader who wants to bring people, who wants to bring all this committee of Muslim nations together to work towards the resolution of the issues of Kashmir, of Palestine, even of Afghanistan, and anywhere where we see Muslims, in trouble. This is one of the major goals that OIC has to work towards. As I mentioned earlier as well, this is a re-rise of OIC. We see a lot of vibrancy. We see a lot of energy in the OIC of today. And people, they've been complaining over the years that OIC is a forum that does not do anything. But in 2020 and in 2022, if you look at the resolutions that have been passed, the way it has been handled, the way Palestine is being talked about, this is something that it's going to work towards. It's going to help towards the reignition of debate on Palestine in the international.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now joined by Mr. Yasir Masood. He is an expert of foreign policy and also an expert of Afghan affairs. Yasir, I welcome you to my program.
Thank you very much.
And we see issue of Afghanistan once again being reminded to all these OIC countries. A few months ago, all these OIC countries were here in Islamabad sitting in the same parliament house, and they came forward for help of Afghanistan. Afghanistan again is reminded to be one of the major problems of Muslim Ummah. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I think it's a very pertinent question because I think Pakistan is the only country under the sun which has taken this initiative, and with positive overtures, because the crisis in Afghanistan calls for deliberated action, targeted action, because a humanitarian crisis is looming large, and the country which has been suffering for the last 40 years by regional or even extraterritorial regional powers. So I think with that perspective, Pakistan has played a very constructive role. And let me tell you that Pakistan has always been promoting peace and prosperity and been, spreading this olive branch to other countries as far as the peace and prosperity is concerned. Even if it was the case of Taliban, Pakistan has made considerable efforts to bring Taliban on the table. Now, having said this, this was a big achievement, a diplomatic fiat on part of Pakistan that Prime Minister Imran Khan highlighted the gravity of Afghanistan in front of the rest of the world, because we see that the perspective, the Western perspective, the construction of narratives is completely otherwise what is really happening in Afghanistan. So I think if the world needs to realize, and that's what exactly Pakistan is aiming at, the world needs to realize that all those negative perception, all those concocted and constructed narratives which are emanating from the West. Even the people sometimes believe that these are extremists and militancy is there. That is not the real situation. Let me tell you that more than 22.8 million people they have already displaced internally, and with this recent crisis 3.2 million children, including 70,000 pregnant women, are at the risk of malnutrition. And then around 2.5 million are already displaced. And with this crisis, let me correct the figure, 665,000 refugees are taking refuge in different countries. And I think more than half of the Afghans, which is about 22.8 million, they have suffering from.
Yasir, a very important point for all these OIC countries is to discuss the recognition of Afghanistan. Because Afghanistan stands unrecognized by any major country so far. Don't you think that this should be a point of major attention for all these countries together? Because if they take a lead in recognizing Afghanistan, perhaps they can build diplomatic pressure on the rest of the world as well. Don't you think the risk associated with this too high to take this initiative at the moment?
Second largest political organization after United Nations. It comprises, if we see the population, it's about 2 billion people are the Muslim world. And then it has the resources, like more than 75% of natural gas and oil resources it carries. And it has a lot of it can spend trillions of dollars. So it comes up with a big diplomatic effort, with a big diplomatic pressure, as you just mentioned, and can make realistic efforts towards the recognition of Afghanistan. Because the reason is that Afghanistan needs stability, Afghanistan needs recognition, and United States of America, for that matter, from 2017 onwards, were on table with
Yasir,
Taliban.
let me come back to you on this. As you heard, we are discussing the issue of Afghanistan again, reminding that we have yet not, I mean, as OIC, we have yet not maneuvered our diplomatic muscle to its strength. What are your thoughts on it?
I think to work towards the recognition of Afghanistan, this will have to be once the major powers have sort of worked out how exactly are they going to deal with the leadership, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, the Taliban. Some points have to be sort of ironed down. A lot of discussion has to take place, and for countries such as Pakistan, obviously Pakistan, as much as it wants the world to sit down and talk to Taliban, the world is not ready for it as of yet. So efforts have to be made.
Going back to the issue of Palestine, as you were discussing, time and again resolutions have been passed in United Nations, but when the resolutions reach the Security Council, they're shot at there. Also the fact that the neighboring countries of Palestine perhaps might not have played the kind of role that they were initially playing in the early 70s. So how do you see OIC playing its role, or the potential role that OIC can play to exert further pressure on the United Nations to behave more rationally when it comes to Palestine?
We've seen division along the lines of OIC for the last several decades, if not decades, several years at least. there have not been any concerted efforts by the countries which hold some sway over the United States, which hold some sway over the European Union, the countries which can actually, in a way, sit down and talk to Israel as well. Obviously, we have seen multiple resolutions on Palestine being rejected or being vetoed down by the US in the Security Council. Perhaps countries such as Saudi Arabia and UAE, and perhaps they could sit down with Pakistan, and some issues could be talked about, and some sort of a draft paper could be made to take these discussions forward. OIC as a combined unit could perhaps, it has quite a few resolutions on Palestine as well, but at the international bodies such as the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council, they'll have to work together.
Coming back to you, Yasser, there were many commitments made in the last extraordinary meeting that was held in Islamabad again. The countries had made a lot of promises to Afghanistan with regards to the economic contribution that they'll make. So can you update us on what has happened thereafter? Because again, all these countries are here together and certainly discussing Afghanistan once again.
Well, actually, we are still waiting for there are 100 resolutions which are already being discussed, and I think that are already passed, and we will see the overview of that probably tonight or by tomorrow morning. But let me tell you that even in the last extraordinary session, where 20 foreign ministers of the entire world, 10 deputy foreign ministers, they were invited, and the main agenda was to help the Afghan people, not only diplomatically but also economically, because as I just mentioned, that there is a big crisis which is in the offing, humanitarian crisis. So all the international financial institutions, including United Nations, including P5 countries, including European countries, they need to come up and help the Afghans, because they are in a dire need of this. I am more than confident that in this OIC session, there must be
Yasser, your voice is breaking.
helping the Afghan people as far as economics are concerned. Economically, they need help.
Yasser, your voice was breaking.
Sorry?
I'll come back to you later. So, Syed, in the end, what do you think about the coordination that we are having? As you rightly mentioned, there are issues between these countries as well. Some of these countries have difference of opinion, at least to say. Meeting more often, even that on the level of foreign ministers. Don't you think it's an ideal opportunity to create some more synergy between the Islamic countries and to start thinking together more as one bloc?
I think this is an excellent opportunity for all of these countries to put aside their their personal vendettas, their issues between the countries, their diplomatic issues. If there are any territorial issues, I don't think there are any between the countries in the region. But whatever there is in terms of their thought and mind, they can put it aside and they can work towards, they can synergize their efforts. Where else would you have 57 countries, Islamic countries in the world on a united front, working towards similar goals but not agreeing in principle, or agreeing in principle but not actually working towards them? They have to come together. They can't just keep missing these opportunities. The world is not going to wait for them.
Thank you very much, Syed. Thank you very
so
much, Yasser, for being guest in the program. Ladies and gentlemen, as both of my guests explained, this is an excellent opportunity for all these Islamic countries to improve their coordination, to further work together for the pursuit of common objectives. Our transmission will continue, but this program and hers. Thank you very much for watching.